Here comes the nasty gram.
Send a priest to save my soul, forget it.
Welcome back to the Nastygram RPG podcast. This is a special Game Master Roundtable Heroes Feast Smorgasbord.
Feeling it too hard is the poison to the heart of a cynic redemption. Now I'm waking to pain.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the Nastygram RPG podcast. Today, we are doing a Game Master Roundtable. This is Josh, and I'm joined by...
What's good, fam? Matt here. I am at the table, ready for some meats and cheeses.
This is Devin, and I ran the Wings of Connie Star Wars World 2D6 game.
You plugging yourself?
Yeah, hell yeah.
What is going on here?
It's good.
Damn.
Hey, folks. Dan here. I'm here.
Dan ran Cyberpunk.
Dan says folks.
Folks.
Hey, folks.
He says rubbish as well.
And he tries to keep saying aluminum the wrong way.
Aluminium.
So, every time we've done one of these before, and some have been put out on the main feed, some haven't, but we've always tackled one subject. One thing we've been doing since we started our own Patreon is one of the special benefits for our top tier, for the snack shackers that join us. The top tier is called the Heroes Feast, and one of the special perks we tried to think of to give them is coming up with their own question for the topic of a Game Master Roundtable. And I think the last time you heard one of these, it was actually Peter's with his question or topic about tropes and what we got into there. This time is a little different because Brian K., also a all-high Heroes Feaster, he threw us a few different topics with kind of the idea that if we wanted to grab one, but we looked these over. A, they're all pretty cool. B, there's a couple that I don't think all of us can speak to fully. So we thought this might be cool to kind of get into all of them, get a chance to answer all these questions, and then use this as an example of all the cool things you can do with your benefits as a Hero Feast. So, all right?
Sweet.
You're here.
Here. Dan, can you stop rooting around in your paperwork?
I am looking for something.
You're looking for the character sheet for the game we're going to play after
God
this, which
damn
you've
it.
lost. But our first question, this is definitely one that I looked at and I was like, boy, I don't have much to say about that. Online RPG groups, tips and best practices for those of us in overseas locations not conducive to in-person gaming, or for anyone who just doesn't have a gaming group, this is me editorializing, physically able to get together around them. So,
I don't have a lot of experience in this category. We're very fortunate to be in the studio together. But I think the first thing that comes to mind when I think about this is clothed. To be clothed.
That's wasteful.
I mean,
It's opportunity wasted.
I think that could be negotiated.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think you could do it with pants off, but not have the camera point there.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way that if you do that in person, that's maybe sexually assault.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's, everybody's in agreement with it.
The
it's a
mullet
little
style.
spicy.
Party on top or business in the front, party on the bottom.
You don't even need
Yeah.
to have your camera on to enjoy the space of online role-playing.
This is true. So I think, Devin, you probably have the most experience in this. Let me just jump in because I will be very short. I don't have much. I don't know if you do, Matt.
No.
I've only done it a couple times. I think we tried something online during COVID. And actually, when I was in the military, I did it remote. So wait, Matt, you do have something to
Maine.
say. You were remote.
You're in Maine.
Oh, yeah.
But editing
I forgot
the
about that.
episode in which you are remote.
This is a little different because the way I and Matt have done it the most, everyone was there except for one person remote. And I don't think that's exactly what Brian's getting at.
Yeah, it wasn't a group of randos.
But I would say, and I don't want this to be discouraging, but to me, the time I tried it with all of us remote, I really missed it. I didn't feel as engrossed, as immersed. But one takeaway to lead into what you just mentioned, Devin, is that I do think cameras are important because I think, for me at least, maybe more visual, like seeing other people, seeing their reactions, even with a lag or something like that, was important as part of the process. And I think we turned it off because like it was slowing down things a little bit. So yeah, but I don't have much to add.
Yeah, I think I would partially agree. Again, it wasn't a group of randos. It was you guys that I was the remote one for. And I do think being the GM was significantly easier and more fun from my perspective than being a player. The GM, obviously you're more engaged because you're having to like build a story with everybody. And being a player remote, like I definitely noticed I had to put in more of a conscious effort to like try to be present when there's 2 or 3 people at the table having a conversation. It's like, it's really not like a great space to break in, or I feel kind of on the outside of it. But I think it really is like your personality. If you're a gregarious person, then I think even being on camera or remote with people, you would still feel like you're engaged, especially with a camera. But I think you have to be like, force yourself to be more engaged, to pay attention to everybody, because not everybody is you or is as like into the thing. And if you're not into it, then you aren't paying attention. And somebody's like, what do you say? And it's like, well, I don't know what the hell was going on. I attack.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'm editing an episode right now where you're playing remote as a player.
Yep.
And I think it's actually combat which defines boundaries, because there's an initiative order that makes it the easiest for you to engage.
Absolutely.
Whereas
you get your specific time. It's your turn. Whereas when it's more of the role-playing aspect, it's much easier to feel left out or not comfortable to like jump in. But that could be my personality. I'm not sure how you felt with being overseas and doing it.
I was always only in the States, which helped with the internet connection at the time. Although probably there's a lot of places now that have a lot better internet connection than we do. But it was, you had to sit back and wait your opportunities, and it worked I only ever did it for one character. It was all the same game, and he was the doctor on a Star Wars game. And it kind of worked for the guy who was sort of in the background and then would step in and be like a little bit more present.
I think it also helped that you did role play him with us as a group in person
before. Yeah.
Because
I established it before I went.
Right. There's already a space kind of held for him. True. So that people will defer. I think having a group that will defer to you so that it gives you those moments really helps. I think it was harder in the choose your own adventure setting because it's all new. It's not a long running campaign. I will say my best bet is that there's probably some pretty decent tools, whether it's Zoom or some other version of that might make the process a little better.
Editor's note number 1. Yes, we realize that we said Devin should probably answer this question 5 or 6 minutes ago, but we're his elders, so he can wait.
Well, Devin, I think you've done more to the version of what Brian's talking about here. Have you?
Yeah, where everyone is
like real.
Yeah, everyone is. Everyone's remote. Everyone's all at their own individual houses, and using like a shared tabletop, in like Discord.
I know
chat.
John has done a lot of this too, but unfortunately, he's not here tonight.
Yeah, actually, Josh, I wanted to ask you a question. Your GM when you played when you were overseas, when you were remote, was everyone remote in that game?
No, I was the only one.
Okay,
that was a similar situation to Matt.
That was when there's one person remote. I think it's tough. Like the person who's remote is going to miss stuff because there's other people at the table like having the conversation. And I've done that. If I'm homesick or something. It's always the people at the table are having fun, but the person remote is usually has to be more actively engaged. But I do like where everyone is remote. There's usually like one talker at a time. There's some problems with like latency and people talking over each other in voice chat. But overall, I think it's like everyone is on an equal sort of level of engagement with each other. And I think with or without cameras. I know some people like cameras. I'm used to like online gaming, and like all my friends that I play D&D with all play online games. So it's more normal for us to be able to, talk and listen.
Deep eye contact.
Yes. And then, but like be engaged with something on the screen.
So what did you find that having like tools like virtual
Roll20,
tabletops, shit like that was important?
Virtual tabletops were awesome. I also, during that time, there were a lot of people playing online role-playing TTRPGs. And there was a lot of great artists that would make these maps that you could import into the virtual tabletop. And there was some really cool stuff, man. Like there's, animated, scenes and, there's one where it's like a big ship and it's all pieces of a ship in the map and you can build your own. I think GMing for online games is really fun.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Two things. One, hopefully we can get Andrew to weigh in.
Oh shit.
As he has been a remote GM. I think
Twice.
To Matt's point, being a remote GM has a lot more structure again to it. You are the point of focus.
Yep.
So that just everyone keeps deferring back to you.
Editor's note number 2. This was a good point by Dan, and we did in fact reach out to our good friend Andrew for his thoughts.
All right, Josh, here's my answer to Brian's question on online gaming. Hi, this is Andrew. I ran a couple of Paranoia games for Nasty Graham, and we had a lot of fun. I was virtual, so I was the remote GM to the local players, which fits right into some of the examples that you guys have already mentioned. And I think it was a lot of fun. And I think it is one of the few examples where online gaming can actually really work. In that specific scenario, it works because you guys were working as a party. A lot of times you were kind of working as a party. A lot of times you're working against each other. But so, there'd be some consultation amongst yourselves and then contributing back your answer to me in order for us to continue the plot. It says the thing with online gaming is you're generally using the video conferencing tool, and that is the impediment. Everybody who is using that, the technology has to be good enough that it provides an immersive experience. If you're experiencing lag, if you don't know quite how to do it, if you're an 89-year-old grandma who, is constantly pushing the mute button, it's going to be a incomplete experience. It's going to be awkward. But generally, when it works, it can be very good. And that is a situation where it does work. The situation Devin mentions where there's one person who's not there. Well, actually, I guess it was Matt in your games. But anyway, the situation where one person is virtual and the rest of the group is present, that is probably the worst because, when I've done it, there's one person on an iPad and it's a tinny speaker and you've got to move the camera so they can see whoever's talking and you can't hear them and they can't see your nuances. Yeah, it's very rough. And after I did it one time in a game I was running, I decided if you want to participate in your virtual, you're not going to be present. Your character's not going to be present for this game. You're going to be able to listen to what everybody else is doing so that, next week when we get together, you don't have to ask what happened. You were there, but your character's not there for this one. It's kind of where I land on that. So the other game where everybody is remote, I have had lots of experience with that. During COVID, I ran a D&D game with a local improv troupe, and that was very successful. In that case, everybody was engaged. Everybody was interested. We were all locked up at home, so we're desperate to socialize. So that was great. We had a virtual tabletop. We had all the tools. People knew their characters. We took it seriously, and it was fun. I have also run and played in online games which are complete disasters because people were checked out. They weren't paying attention. We would come around to their turn and like Matt had described, it's like, oh, I hit him. It's like, he's your ally. You sure want to do that? So those situations, it can be very tough. And again, it comes down to the group you have. I would say that let me say this again. I would say that for the most part, the online gaming experience, when it comes to a tabletop role-playing game, you have to treat it like a different kind of game. I think we can all agree that around the table in person is probably the ultimate experience because you do get all that nuance. You do get all that banter and side conversation, gestures, things that don't really translate to just the one-to-many spectrum, which is the video conferencing experience. So if you can work within those parameters, it can really work. But if you're not set up for it, if you have technical problems, it's going to be a problem. If you're desperate to do it and that's all you've got, well, maybe it's going to work for you. So on the technical point, I would say the goal is the smooth experience. If you can get people in the same time zone, that's great, or they're okay with being slightly off, that's cool. If you're on the other side of the world and somebody's sleepy and the other people are wide awake, that's obviously going to be tough. The tabletop virtual tools are pretty much essential so that you can all be on the same page of where the characters are. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be just hand-drawn, but you need to be able to have a common point of reference, which you can just gesticulate in real life, but over a virtual environment, it's impossible. So unless you got players which are very good with theater of the mind, I mean, there are people out there that can do it, but in my gaming experience, that's pretty rare, and it's really good to have a common point of reference. The camera in a video conferencing, I'd say it is essential. I mean, I know people do Discord, they just do audio only, and that is a unique experience as well, because you're really listening if you were engaged. But the camera is useful for one important thing, and that is you can raise your hand to indicate you want to say something. It doesn't stop the flow. The GM can keep on saying something, or another player can say something, but it is your cue that you want to do something, and it can be smooth and natural. Obviously, you got to watch, but I think it did bridge the gap for a lot of that etiquette stuff about when is it time for me to talk. You try and avoid that thing where there's one person who's dominating the conversation. The GM knows I'm going to come to you next. As for banter, you've said that, in person, you think that's the thing that you get most in person that you wouldn't get over video conferencing. Not my experience. I think there's plenty of banter. I think it all comes down to the group. If you are just lamenting that you're online and can't be in person, obviously that's going to change the nature of the experience. But again, if you're fighting the interface of your video conferencing tool, that is probably the worst thing about the online tabletop role-playing experience. But on the technology front, there is an interesting development in video conferencing. I think Microsoft Teams is the one that implemented it latest. It is called 3D positional audio, and it tries to adjust the left-right spectrum of what you're hearing based on where player avatars are on your interface. So if somebody's on the left side of the interface, their little face in a box and they're talking is on the left side, then you hear them in your left ear, and it sort of moves to the right as people are talking, and you see their faces, spread out left or right. So I have played with that a little bit, and it is really good, actually, at bridging the gap between the virtual and the real. It's not perfect, obviously. In person is still better, but it's surprisingly good for trying to give you a more real experience. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So sum up, online role-playing can be good. It depends on your group, it depends on your technology, and it depends on everybody's comfort level in doing it. So there you go. Josh, I hope any of that is useful to you.
And two, are you trading stocks right now? Why do you have an earpiece in your ear?
Oh, it's not on. Sorry.
That is crazy. That is crazy.
I was listening. Wild. I was doing my homework.
Listening to another episode. One thing I would add from my limited experience, but also from listening to other podcasts that do it, I think it's really hard to have the same level of banter that we do at a table that some people love to have at their table. Some people don't even like that, which is fine. But how we can, bust each other balls, make a joke, do this, do that, almost even not have side conversations, but sort of be picking up in between things. I think it's harder to do that because you get too much fuck ups from people talking over each other, not being able to hear and understand. And I think ultimately it maybe lends itself better to more serious or tactical, crunchy if you have the tools for it.
Yeah.
And if not, if it's going to be all theater of the mind, I think it has to be a little bit more serious and weighty stuff because it sort of just works better for that. And, if people are going to role play, it's got to be the kind of role play where pause, someone starts talking, or you have a 1 and 4, a one-on-one back and back. It's just harder to do what we do a lot, where we just have natural kind of discourse at the table.
Agreed.
During COVID, I was quarantined with 4 people. It was my partner, and then the 3 friends that I played D&D with. So early on in the
I'm amazed she married you.
the pandemic,
It's a saint.
we would still play D&D. And then the other like 3 other nights a week I would play online with sometimes some of those same friends, but like I was a chance to play with. I have friends on the West Coast that I haven't seen in a long time, so they would come and play little one shots. But I learned that playing online will always be the next best thing. No matter how many tools you have, it is not as it's not the same as being at the table or under the table. In fact,
Nothing beats.
but it's if you can't play D&D in person, playing online is great. There's great satisfaction, so much joy. Even now, like I can still log into my virtual tabletop and see all the maps and all the tokens and all the notes and things that I put on there. So it was, it got me through a lot of that time.
Yep.
Just being able to socialize with people and talk to them.
So your pitch for online gaming is during the next pandemic?
I think if another pandemic comes, I'd be okay. Because I've established these groups of friends, and people there was people that I connected with over during COVID that I hadn't talked to in some time. And a lot of them have been playing. They've been hey, I started my own D&D group out in California. It's been awesome. I got 5 people to come play, stuff like that. Yeah, it's good.
All right. Well, there's us kind of maybe not really answering exactly what Brian was asking, but as best as we could from our experience.
Fair.
That was the first of 4 things he threw out there. The next one we're going to talk about, gaming for kids. Have any of you run game for your kids, nieces, nephews, etc.? And if so, how did you plan it for their age interest? A lot of us got into D&D via a cool uncle as kids, and I'm curious if any of you got to be that person now and how the experience was. Dan and I are in one of these situations right now, but Matt and Devin, do you guys have any input or experience or thoughts with this?
I do not. I ran a game at a local mall with just like open to the public. People could come in and play. And there was like, or like
that is hashtag brave.
Yeah.
I got a lot of store credit. A lot of my D&D books were paid for with by store credit running D&D.
Okay, I see that.
I played at another little local game store, and there was a father and a son, and they were, he was teaching his son how to play D&D, and it was really funny. I'm not going to reveal any information, but it was a funny time. The dad was definitely a gamer. I'll just say that.
Nothing, Matt?
No kids, thankfully. No nieces, nephews, cousins.
Well, Dan, we've been doing one. You want to start it off?
Well, I am I'm a player character, but I'm more of a support player character. I think one of the important things I'll say from the starting out with kids who have also never played before is giving them the room and sort of the license to do D&D, to use their imagination and kind of flex whatever muscles they have in this space. And one of the ways I usually will try to do it is I will take whatever the game master is kind of giving us. I will kind of open up a question to them, deliberately address them to answer what we confront, because that puts them kind of in the driver's seat. A lot of times it's easier for the kids, especially if they've got grown-ups sitting around the table, to sometimes, I think, take a step back. And so the idea is to constantly try to put them in front of the story so that they have those opportunities. So I think if our particular scenario is the group is actually pretty big. It's the 4 adults and 2 kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
But Levin, who is the father of one of the kids, and then one of his buddies, and then our friend Cooper, who you've heard on the podcast, we're all kind of involved because we're all kind of de facto uncles to these kids. And so it's important that we give the kids the space because it's about them. It's about them getting into it and giving them as many opportunities as they can to jump in.
Yeah, this has been my first and only experience with it, and it has honestly been awesome. So this is, two kids I call and consider my nephews, not by blood, but I'm Uncle Josh and whatever's Jack and Sam. Didn't dox them, you know. But they both just turned 12, but we started this, they were still 11. They had already expressed some interest. I think Sam had played once, but this was, something that had been in my mind of like, oh, I wonder if, they'll ever get into this because like Brian brought up, that is how I got into it. The cool older brother, cool uncle, whatever. The first two people that ran games for me was Cooper, who you guys have heard on the pod, his older brother, Hayden, and then my stepdad, his younger brother, Jamie. Those were my introductions. So I was like the kid or one of the kids at the table getting that feed in. And I will say, so I've been running the game, a D&D game. We've played 4 times so far.
Yeah, I think 4.
And first off, just as far as an experience, you're going to have your challenges. It is extremely helpful if you can have other adults as player characters. I think it would be, not that it wouldn't be cool, but if it was all just kids, it would be awful tough. You just kind of have to...
Herding cats.
Cats. Having other people there who they're also very comfortable with, their other uncles that can help sort of steer things back together because the attention spans are a factor and other shit, no matter how much they're into it, like you're still going to get some flag, you're going to get some tangents and whatever. But it was really rewarding to me and really like at a time, I wasn't, you guys can't always tell. I mean, I was not on a couple arcs, but I almost played not at all for a year. Partly because of what I had going on and, but I was still editing. I was still, obviously involved, but it was like, it sucked. And like, I was missing playing, but also kind of like, not resentful, but it's weird. Like you're just editing, you're not playing. And then like some of the games that I would have an opportunity to jump in were more like one-offs or different systems that I wasn't as like passionate about getting into. And this sort of restored this like innocent love of like, oh my God, this is fucking great. We're not doing a podcast. We're not doing a whatever. As much as I love that part of it, like it's just about sitting down and having fun and
play a little make-believe with your friends.
Yeah. And you want to learn how to do rule of cool, get kids into a game and say, all right, it's your action. Describe it. What do you do? And don't hold their hands to the fire about what action you take or whatever. Sometimes they'll just say, I attack, I cast a spell or whatever. But a lot of times they'll describe something that doesn't really, and then and then figure it out. Figure out a way to like make a roll for this or do this or whatever. Like it doesn't matter what it is. That engrosses them. But I also found like it was recharging my batteries. And the other thing is give them more credit than you expect because they're kids. They'll be distracted. They'll go all over the place. But every once in a while, they'll pick up on the run with something. So if there's like, don't be afraid to throw in something that could be like a little ethical dilemma. If they ignore it and they just go forward with it in a straightforward way, that's cool. But if they end up in a debate about should we destroy the monster's eggs,
right,
which is what happened in like one of our first games.
Oh my, that's incredible.
It was really good.
It's pretty cool. Like then it's them talking about it.
That's better than Star Trek, man. That's awesome.
So and you just gotta give them. You just gotta give. They
kept an egg.
Yeah, they kept an egg.
Just one?
Yep. There was the only one left.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Some got broken in the fight.
You give them. It's really interesting because if it's so easy to kind of tiptoe into that conversation and you'll immediately steer it one way or the other. But if you just hold on and you let them, they start talking amongst each other. And these two kids, they're cousins, so they're joined at the hip and they have all sorts of like, crazy adventures together anyways. They game together, like video games and stuff. So they quickly picked up the opportunity and ran with it. It was very cool.
But yeah, it's been cool. It's been very cool and rewarding. So I guess, the advice, if you can mix adults and kids, everybody like knows each other and comfortable because kids will clam up if there's like adults there that they don't like feel that they can be goofy around. And then just, have fun with it. Like play by the rules as much as people care to or are following them, and then deviate as often, as much as you want to as long as everybody's having fun. And that's not about just winning, just doing cool shit.
I'm sure Adam or I don't know if Jesse comments much, but
Adam's
both of
been
those
talking
guys,
about-
Adam's been
yeah.
talking about it. Hopefully they can chime in on this topic as well.
Cool.
Should have
Right.
done it live. Do it live. Fuck it.
Next time.
Fucking thing sucks.
All right.
Oh, can I add something in here real quick for
Is this a plug?
No. I wanted to
Back in when I ran Wings of Connie.
it was a cool Star Wars game. I've been thinking about Star Wars lately. That's why I was thinking about it. Just tips and best practices. I just wanted to name a couple of things that were just sort of like off the dome. Don't be afraid to leave a group if you're not vibing with it. There are a lot of people playing D&D out there. If there is a game that you join and it's just, first session, a lot of times, a lot of the people that I've heard from that have had bad experiences, they knew very, very quickly. And it's just like being able to say, hey, this isn't the group for me. Thank you for, letting me play, but, be able to move on. Even as a GM too. If you're GMing a game and you feel like the group isn't really, vibing, then feel free to walk away from it. There's a lot of people playing D&D. They'll find other places to play D&D, so on and so forth. I think talk to, it's just as important for GMs to talk to their players outside of the game as it is if you're playing at the table. I think that's part, when everyone's apart anyways before the next session, that's a regular thing,
Maybe like an individual follow-up in between sessions.
Totally. And, I've played with GMs who, before we play, they'll send a little message, ask about your character, the same way that we'll do the same thing and just sort of talk about who we're going to play. And that level of engagement makes it so that, when you come online, and a lot of times, if you have a limited time or there's one person talking at a time, having a good GM who, recognizes maybe there's a player that hasn't spoken up and then call them to, to have their little, their little time, whether that's new players or people who might not be comfortable playing online. I think it's the same idea, right? Is, have one of your players show them, let them do like some fun stuff and just get them more, engaged.
There's something, an idea that we joke about this because this happened in somebody's game before, an idea that I hate in general, but somebody was talking about it on a podcast in this specific context of like tips for online playing. And they said when they get into like major role playing with an NPC kind of encounters, they go into initiative solely for the purpose of giving everyone an opportunity and not pressure, but sort of a little nudge to step in and get involved. And like, there's a part of me that like hates the idea of like, we're gonna have a conversation initiative, but in the sense of like, okay, you're in this environment where a couple voices might drown out other people. Now this is a way to at least, maybe you don't do the entire encounter like that, but maybe you go around once or twice just to get everybody sort of like that initial involvement. And whether you do initiative or you just say, go around the table, however you do it.
I like the initiative.
It's clever.
Cause like then it it's random. It's not whoever's gonna want to talk first.
Yep.
Like everybody will have to. So I like that.
I think that sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, at the very least, people can just say, I pass.
Yeah.
If it's not their moment.
And they might maybe say like, I'm going to actually try to look at this person and like maybe have roll like a spot check or whatever.
In like the 2D6 games, like the Powered by the Apocalypse games, Dungeon World, Steamy World, whatever it is, Star Wars World, it's the entire narrative takes place in scenes. So, if it's not like an individual action, or like a combat or some sort of like, timely encounter, you can still, have that same structure of, have your character do a scene. Maybe they talk with an NPC and, go to the vending machine. And then, the next scene, whether it's home scenes in Delta Green, or just, just the flow of the game. Keep it short, let everyone talk.
Yep. All right. Our third of four topics we're going to talk about. So I'll read this full point. And he specifically talks about one. He says, how does an arc like Rod on the Vine go from being being an idea to a finished pod arc? Did you come up with the idea first and then find the Rodfather entry, or did the entry spawn the idea? How do you pitch it to the crew, decide who's playing, how far in advance you have to record so you can edit and prep for launch? Just curious how an arc evolves from inception to final episode, and if you are ever still recording the end during longer arcs while the game is still ongoing. So I thought a cool way to do this would be we would kind of just each individually answer for something that we've run and put on the pod, and kind of talk about it, because it's a different process almost every time. So I'll answer first for the Rod on the Vine. This was a specific example where we identified ahead, hey, do we want to do a Halloween game? We've done that before, and we're like, yeah, and we'll do one on each. We'll do a D&D one and a regular one. And so we knew, regardless of there already being an ongoing arc, okay, boom, we have some dates on a board that we want to fill. So then like scheduling it logistically was kind of just working backwards from there and kind of forcing, making sure that it was all done and had time to edit it and get it out there, which, can be good for a one shot or a short game like that. That was a 2-session game. As far as like my personal inspiration for that game, that was a combination of my own inspiration and collective like stealing and whatever. The first thought that came into my mind was my lady and I were rewatching Stranger Things in preparation for the new season. And I think it was the first season or something. And there was the scene with all the pumpkins rotting in a field. And I just thought like it's so cool. These like black, like you could almost see like the fumes rising up from them. And it was just that image. And then like that stuck in my head with the idea of doing a D&D Halloween game. And I'm like, D&D Halloween, like fall, pumpkins, forest, foggy forest. And I started there, and then I work. My side job is on a vineyard. So some of my game inspiration time is driving around on a tractor. So I got this idea about this blighted farm situation. And then I'm out on a tractor driving through a vineyard for hours at a time. And I was like, oh, I'll do a vineyard. And in the back of my head, there's also, I had prepped to run Curse of Strahd, and there's a vineyard in that game. So that gave me some mechanical inspiration. The blights came from there. So I kind of like got that background of it. And then like other shit will come in. The unicorn thing was just like, I needed what is the thing being corrupted? Like at first it was just gonna be a blight. And then I was like, I want it to be more mythical or whatever. You throw that in there and it comes up. And then, steal and be inspired as much as you can. That's always my lesson is like, yeah, 100% Curse of Strahd, this, that. Like I some of the basic blights were right out of there. And then the tree thing, it was like, there's a tree blight in the book. And then I just totally modified it for like a new thing that I wanted it to do. But, pretty much everything in the game was inspired by something else. And for a one shot, I think that's fine. So that's how that one happened.
Look for inspiration everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, rip people off.
Hell fucking yeah.
So yeah, when you guys talk about something you ran, your individual inspiration, and then how it kind of worked podcast logistics. Like what I didn't talk about is for that game, I actually let people make their own characters. I have a weird attraction to the idea of one shots making characters for people, just because I feel like it simplifies things. I want to know that everyone is going to be able to succeed and have a role to fill without also being like overpowered or too on the nose.
I loved the Krampus game. That was great.
Yeah. So sometimes I feel like that's my favorite way to do the one shot. But this one was just, we identified where the hole in the schedule was, who could be there. We wanted everybody to play in one of them. So some people were in just the D&D Halloween game or the regular main feed game. And then, all right, you guys get characters. Try to get it to me a week before. No one will ever do that. So then I looked at the characters, the day of.
You're obligated to ask, though. Go ahead.
No, you first.
Have you run any Star Wars material on the podcast?
I don't know. Let me check the library. Hold on. I actually was just thinking about, the way that it happens here, like how a game gets pitched to the group. I think Josh did a great job in sort of summarizing how to, just anything that you consume, anything that you see, things that you experience.
Well, talk about specifically Wings of Connie. How was that born? How did you get your crew? What did you, how did that become a podcast, but also become a game for you? And
I was disappointed by the sequel trilogy, and I was just like, I want
the first
some.
time he's ever admitted it.
I want some good. I thought The Force Awakens was. I like.
Don't go down this rabbit hole.
Okay, it
Stop.
set up a lot of really cool things.
Oh my god!
Cool things that I would
It's
have
not
liked to
making
see.
it on the pod.
All right.
are you editing this one?
It was just the start. No. So Star Wars, I wanted some Star Wars stuff. And I remembered watching the Genndy Tartakovsky, the Clone Wars animated series. So fucking good. Not like a line of dialogue in the whole show, but you know exactly what's going on, and it's fucking awesome. And I always thought, I had this, what happened to all the lightsabers? And that's where it came from, and then I bring that idea back to it didn't end up being that, by the way, the Star Wars game, but bringing that idea back to the table and usually towards the end of an arc, or if we have, spaces in the schedule, we'll talk amongst ourselves about, does anyone have any games that they want to run? And then, usually we've been lucky enough to have a couple people, step up every time. Josh did a little, like a three game pitch to us one time where he, gave us, a few ideas of games that he would run in different systems and different settings. And then we all sort of picked which ones that we liked the most. And
we did rank choice.
Yeah, we did. We did rank choice. It was very democratic, which was great.
Very European.
Yeah.
Parliamentarian.
Where, usually when people come, there's like, I've been thinking about this game or this game. A lot of times people be like, I want to play Delta Green. Does anyone have like a Delta Green game? And then they'll come up like that. And then we just put it on the calendar and then show up and roll dice.
Matt, Dan, you got any you want to tackle for your individual?
I'll go. I don't think I have any full arcs that have released.
Not released. You've
Yeah.
got a full
I've
whopper of an arc.
I've got some backlog that I sincerely hope to soon put effort into getting some of it out. But it's been like what 2.5 years since
I would have thought longer.
Bloodstone
that
Wrap
game
might be close to
ended.
3.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like it's been a while. And I know I've released some one shots, but I do feel like when I come up with a game or an arc or something, is kind of like Josh is saying, there's a thing that I think about that is like, ooh, well that sounds kind of interesting. And then I let it cook. I like put it on low in the oven, throw a lid on it, and like I kind of just let it marinate. And like background thoughts when I'm taking a shower is like, oh well, you know what else would be cool? Flipping through books, inspiration from everywhere, and then it's kind of just like building pieces for it. I do, I like chaos. Like, it sounds insane, but when I come up with a character, the first thing I do, I don't even think about what class I want to play. It's the name that comes to me first. I come up with the name, and I'm like, what would a Talon Fizzlewick be like? I'm like, well, that sounds like a halfling or a gnome. Okay, so from a halfling or a gnome, what would I like? And like, I kind of work it from there, and it's just whatever inspiration hits me. Sometimes in an arc, session to session, it's like in some of the unreleased stuff was like, there's, you're on the way for something, and it's like I'm watching something or flipping through the monster manual, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I'm gonna have them fight that. Like, how do I get them to there now from where we were? Like, oh, okay, well, if it's that, then it would be I could go here or there. Like, I'm a big spiderweb person too, so I'll write it down, write a circle, and then draw lines of like X, Y, or Z. And then from Z, I'll put down PQR. And then Q leads to this, and R leads to that. And I can build a thing. And then once I get into the game, I have this massive web of stuff that like I can go to. And it's like, oh, well, they did this. Like, okay, well, that's Q.
You can hint at like the next
Mm-hmm.
thing down the web.
And none of them are a fleshed out idea, because as the GM, like I'm trying to not like railroad and be like, wow, you go here now and you do this thing. It's okay, well, they're heading in this direction. Like, oh, this would be kind of a cool thing to do. Like, well, let's see how they react to that and like see what happens. Sometimes it works out great and you guys do awesome things, and sometimes you slaughter a family and, you know,
Or make a stew.
or make a stew.
Oh, God.
Matt, you did though one time run a game from a module for us.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Cowboy
yeah,
Bebop.
Cowboy Bebop.
I personally, I loved Cowboy Bebop. That was a very like a thought provoking game. So the way that
Big
you
departure.
yeah, your abilities are it's not really abilities, it's your approach and your approach to a situation. How, you know, what do we see your character doing on the screen? How do they look? What's their vibe? And you would roll using, you know, rock or blues or jazz or dance.
Yeah.
And it was very, you know, you had to be very thoughtful, you know, to come up with, you know, something, how your character did something rather than what do they do.
Yeah, the
which is very
module
cool.
was definitely different, and I do think for me, Cowboy Bebop, the way the system runs is probably my ideal way of playing TTRPG
play it
because
again.
it very much is the rule of cool. Like Devin's saying, like you're not
Cool is a skill.
Yeah, like
An ability.
you're not like, okay, well, you know, I'm gonna go and shoot that guy. It's like, well, no. What does it look like? You know, you have these like elements to your character, and it's like, okay, well, so the elevator opens, and I'm walking across the room, and the light from the chandelier glistens off of my wingtip shoe. Wingtip shoe relates to like this character trait, so now you
get a bonus for mentioning your wingtip shoe.
And it's like, as I walk past the room, like I see a woman in a red dress and like she catches my eye. But as I'm looking over at her, I see a gun in the waist belt of a bodyguard that I didn't notice before. And as I see that, I see, you know, my mark sitting at the table and that bodyguard is distracted. So I run over and I grab I pull out my revolver and I blast a shot into him. It's like, okay, revolver, wingtip shoe, in this. You've now built your dice pool, and it's not like, you know, I swing my sword. Okay, roll your D20 plus 7. Like, I missed. Okay, well, like, you describe a cool scene, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, like, well, you know, you still feel like you got to build a really cool scene. And it is a very, like, fail forwards kind of game.
Yeah, it's like an anime, you know, style.
I think you would like it. I would like to run a Cowboy Bebop for you. Yeah.
I'd play again for sure.
It's pretty wild. It's very different from, I think, any other system.
You just can't play an animal.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
No, I won't play an animal again.
Played a goddamn cat.
It was awesome. It was great. I could do all the things that the other characters could do. It was awesome. Got into some trouble.
Dan, you want to talk about
Sure.
a personal?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. First, I want to just really look at some of his specific questions. And I think some of them are like, in terms of who is playing, there's 7 of us here. We have our schedule for the podcast written out on a calendar, and we're looking at days where some of us, we're writing down days that were available or not available. And that sometimes informs which games we're playing. It also can sometimes mean that if you're not available at one point, an arc is going to begin without you, and therefore you'll not be a part of it. There's 7 of us. We all have very busy lives, and so it can be challenging, but the best way we've been able to do it is put it on a whiteboard and kind of work backwards from there. That same whiteboard also has a list of dozens, if not more, of different systems. And we look at ones that we want to play and or cross off. We look at, sometimes each individual will write down games that they want to run at different styles. Like people have thoughts kicking around in their head and they'll list them up there. And it could go to like a vote that Josh has done once before, or, you know, DMing is a lot of work and prep. It just goes to the person who feels ready, who feels like they put in the energy and the effort to bring a game to the forefront. And that kind of dictates a lot of what we play. I think one of the other things that, one of the other questions he asks, are we ever still recording the end during longer arcs when the game is still going? And that is an emphatic yes. Our hope, at least from our perspective, just in terms of the challenge of editing, which I'm new to, is that we can get a backlog of edited episodes because it's a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort. And we don't want to be up against a hard deadline when we're trying to release different episodes. In terms of an arc or a campaign, we give our players a lot of flexibility. We've been playing together a long time. We have a lot of luxury, I think, in that respect that other groups might not have.
True.
And when it comes to inspiration, for me personally, there's a couple of things at play. One is, ripping off other ideas. That happens so much with just the content I consume. Two, I often think of a scene that I really like, just a cool concept of the characters trying to figure out what's going on, or that they see the sort of dominoes fall, and just envisioning that moment and then building out around there. The game I'm going to reference hasn't even been released, but it's at the top of my mind because I'm listening to it a lot right now, is the Choose Your Own Adventure. The whole adventure that was planned, it's just 4 episodes, was planned around a game that Jake previously ran, and a character, a big bad guy that he had in that game that we didn't kill. And I brought him with us to that new game. And then there was a character in that arc that came from the movie Fallen. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it, but it's an amazing movie. It's kind of a not a very popular Denzel Washington movie, but the concept is about a demon that travels through people by touch.
John Goodman's in it. It's a banger.
It's a phenomenal movie. And that whole concept of possession became the idea for one of the characters in that arc. And, you just build off of those materials. I mean, would it be great to be completely original every time? Yeah, but then I'd probably be like an award-winning author or TV writer, So I think use the tools that are accessible to you and lean into them, disguise them, right? You don't want to be a word for word knockoff, but if you can bring some of those concepts and kind of repackage them, you can get a lot of mileage out of that, especially on a longer arc where, you might have your core idea, but when you're kind of filling in different little kind of side adventures or side quests, it can help to really lean on others.
Yeah.
And that sort of harkens back to our D&D, our last round table about tropes, and how if you just disguise them and you sort of, cleverly and strategically deploy them, you can get a lot from it. And I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. So wanted to talk about some of our personal stuff, but just, I would say overall for a podcast, I think one of the things that I really enjoy that we've been able to do, like Dan said, most longer arcs are still being recorded when you start to hear them. I think almost all of them. Some shorter ones are definitely wrapped and done. But most of the longer ones we're still playing as they start to drop. However, it's rare when we first come up with a pitch, a game, an idea that we know 100% sure that's going to go on the podcast. Usually it's just like one shots that I brought up, like we're doing a Halloween one. But even then, like if I didn't love how it came out, maybe we wouldn't have put it out there.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think what is cool is that we record more than we release, partly just due to restrictions of time and editing. And even though we all have different schedules, we play almost every week. There's certainly skips and shit like that, but over 5 years, we've probably, recorded 90% of Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're getting 2 or 3 episodes a thing.
Praise be.
The cool thing is that our playing the game and how we do it is with each other, and that always comes first. And we've gotten just used to the idea that we're talking into, mics, and we're on headphones, and we will introduce the episode like it's an episode, but we're playing for each other because we know a lot of that shit will never go out there. So I think my hope is that our process of doing it, if you're asking about specific the podcast side of it, hopefully I think that helps us make it more natural, is that it's less of a forced thing. We're not sitting down and being like, we're playing
make or break
a 400 episode arc where every single fucking thing we say is the next thing that comes out that week. We can fuck around and we can kind of have ideas that don't always go as great or whatever, or games that we walk away from, scheduling thing comes up and it's not like the fucking end of the world. So I think that's a benefit for us.
Yeah.
100%.
Almost always we have to go back and record like a real intro because at the beginning of so many of
never know
these
what it's
games
called.
is like,
None of them.
yeah, welcome. This is whatever the fuck this game is. I don't know if it's going to see the light of day. Like, and then 6 months later, like, hey, that was actually really good. I think we should put that. And
Yeah.
it's like, hey, welcome back to the Nasty Graham RPG podcast.
All right. Let's move on to our last topic here. RPG mood and tone setting for arcs. How do you best use music, mood, lore, NPCs, etc. to set / maintain a tone or a theme for a game? Who wants to jump on that first?
I got DMCA'd.
What is that?
I used the Johnny Cash song in the Vampire the Masquerade. I played when the man comes around during a Larry scene. And I was like, oh, this is so fucking epic. This is so sick. And then I think we were doing YouTube at the time.
Yeah, we still are.
It got struck for the music, but it was good. I love music. I did the Snack Shack. And just briefly, it was really fun. It was like it was like a live episode. I was listening into a live episode like our Heroes Feast members can do from time to time. And it was just, and I could play music and I was eating snacks and shit. It was awesome.
I mean, we've toyed with the idea a lot of doing video. And I think if we ever get to the point where we really are going to do video, we might need for those episodes a producer, a Snack Shack role in-house, because it does give you a lot of benefits. But
I will say, arguably, one of the biggest things that I miss about role playing not on a podcast is music. When we did this the first 25, 30 years before the podcast, we would have a lot of our DMs would have music that they would turn on, whether it was Conan the Barbarian soundtrack while we were playing D&D or Gladiator soundtrack, or when we were playing Vampire, it was always Concrete Blonde Bloodletting to start every session that we played. There was the feeling and emotions that you get from music is undeniable. And at least in in a podcast setting, you can go back and post and add it, which I know you've done, Josh, but there's nothing quite like it when you're like sitting at the table and you get to hear some of that.
we have the technological capacity to do it here. We can stream music that's not being recorded, but it really complicates the editing process. Because and that did happen in Boss Masquerade.
Yep.
But yeah, I miss music tremendously.
So I don't know if you guys remember, but when I ran the aforementioned
Bloodstone, you had music and background sounds and sound effects.
I think that was huge for you guys to like be into the game, but it was also
especially with you remote.
Yes. And I do find it was like essentials to set the tone. There's a lot of this like that game, there's a lot of levity to it. And there were parts of it where it was like, I kind of want you guys to like your characters need to feel like they're like suffering,
threatened,
like shit sucks. Like, yeah, sure, you guys are hanging out in the same room and you want to crack some jokes, but like your characters don't want to crack jokes. And like without the music, and I even think some of those maps that I used were very good to like
with the Fog of War.
Yeah, the Fog of War, and like, hey, you're not, it's theater of the mind. And like, I always feel like with theater of the mind, more things are good. Like you can't restrict
you make
people.
It beneficial to.
Yeah.
Can I get to that guy? I can get to that guy, right?
Yeah. And it's like, well, I don't want to say no because that makes this shitty, but so like, yeah, you can get there. Whereas it's like, no, you can't. Like, you can't, I'm sorry, you can't do that thing.
Right.
You need to do something else. Like, not every turn is gonna be a banger. Like, some shit sucks. So I think the music was huge to set the mood. Maps were big. And even some of the NPCs I had were like, and I think even in some of the one shots were like there to like ground things.
And that was the tone of that game was pretty unique because that was a pretty dark, heavy story that we were playing at points like almost slapstick, silly characters.
Yeah.
So we were playing a very silly group in a very serious setting. And I think we could, do that. Like, because every character could come back and had a actual serious grounding point, but you would let us sort of like almost vent out our silliness and then get back into like serious scenes when it's time to be serious. But when it's time to be silly, you would give us rope and like feed into the situation, the scenario. And I think you handled that very well, the jumping back and forth. And I do think things like, when that map comes up and it looks scary and the music or the sound effects coming in, they're scary. You immediately as a player, you're kind of like, ooh,
Zero
okay,
in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just drop it raw.
I will say that if you were with Josh back in the day when he was trying to set the mood, you'd think he wanted to Netflix and chill. There'd be no chance that you could read your character sheet because every light would be dimmed.
If you're playing
in
vampire
the
and you don't have
entire
candles
room,
on,
you couldn't see
doing
a
it
damn
wrong.
thing. You'd need, and that is before cell phones. You'd have to like bust out a flashlight or a candle in order to read your character sheet.
I want you to wonder,
Oh,
am I
God.
about to run a game for you or are we going to fuck? You don't know.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, I think for most human beings, sound is so important to mood. Music, ambiance, things like that, I think are huge mood and tone setters. To answer some of the other stuff, I mean, this might be really obvious, but I think your lore, NPCs, things like that need to be really consistent to whatever theme, and I think they can inform that a lot. If you want a serious game, like the names have to sound serious and grounded. They have to me, things have to make more sense. Like, the culture of a certain area has to make more sense than it does in like WoW style, like D&D fantasy. Like that's just fucking silly, all, holds board. But, if you're playing like a more grounded fantasy game, like, yeah, everyone that lives in this fucking area probably speaks some of the same languages or like, at least like the similar races probably have a naming convention that sounds consistent. You don't have like Wrinkle Dick McBallskin and Thomas the wizard, like, so I think that what you provide to the players can inform that. There can always be silliness like we did in Matt's game. You can have a serious game and let, silliness either in or out of character vent. But if you want to bring it back serious, I think that is largely on the DM to fill in the blank spaces around you with grounded, serious shit that is consistent to each other. Like if there's technology and you want it to be serious, it has to kind of make sense. If it's, fantasy shit, then whatever.
I like a lot of the horror games that we've played. I think the best ones have been in like modern settings where, you don't have to come up with, a Regnum style, universe where you just use a modern setting and it's easier to understand like a serious tone in a modern setting, I think, rather than, like you said, like when there's orcs and fucking halflings and leshies running around, it's harder to maintain like a serious tone.
I do think as a DM, like wanting to run like a serious dark game, there's nothing wrong with that, but you need to be like, there has to be some flexibility. You can't be like depressing the whole time because then everybody's just depressed. You need to like vent. You need to allow people to like do some silly, stupid shit every once in a while. Cause like, think about your own self. Like if your life is like rough and fucking everything sucks all the fucking time, like you're fucking miserable. Like you kind of like, fuck.
You're hanging out with the homies at the end of the day.
So like going out once a week and going and playing a fantasy game where I get to be like a stupid elf, then fucking cool. Like you can still be serious but there needs to be the like balance.
Yep.
One thing I will also say, looking at kind of the list there, is the topic of lore. it's kind of a controversial one, I think, or maybe not controversial, but there's a lot of ways you can approach it. Lore, to me, one thing I've kind of started to realize over time is that the best lore is the lore that comes from the characters, or that you as a DM build with the characters. I think it helps to have a framework. I think it helps to have, a few paragraphs on an area or a region or a culture or a person, or, to give them anchors. But then I think a lot of the valuable lore, the lore that they carry with them and that they remember, is not through like exposition, but through what their backstory or their current conditions or certain politics that involve specifically their characters. If you can explore that and build on that, that's the stuff that they really kind of grab a hold of. Because it's very easy to, well, not very easy, but I think there's probably plenty of us that can go into a rabbit hole and create a lot of, content about an area or a place. And that can be difficult because it can be a lot. That can be a lot for an audience. It can be a lot for players. Sometimes with players, if you give them a bunch, they get to pick and choose, right? What's important to them. And then they expound on it. And so there's value there. But
and other players will input too. Other players might catch on to some of those things that the one player puts forward, and another player, takes a hold of that, and then maybe moves it along, further. It's,
I guess what maybe what I'm trying to say from this perspective in terms of lore is that it's good to create a framework that they can reference and understand, but don't get too carried away, because the most interesting stuff is probably going to be the stuff that you create together.
Yes.
I do think that I agree with you, but I think it also adds a challenge for the idea of keeping a consistent mood or tone.
True.
To some extent, I think, Matt, you were kind of getting onto this too. It was like, you have to have buy-in. You have to have some buy-in.
Yep.
Like if you want to run this dark, gritty thing, you have to have some kind of buy-in to it, because collaboration is important and can really get people into it, especially like the lore part of it, like Dan's talking about. But you don't want to open that gate and then say no, because that can really like crush players. Like buy-in and immersion and involvement is like you throw stuff out and then you fucking exercise veto power over it. So
yeah,
I think as soon as you start doing it, you have to either really, and hopefully you always do, trust your players that they're going to kind of contribute to the thing you're going to build, or know that maybe it will shift a little bit of the mood and tone, but you can always come back to part of it,
I will say that I think a really great example of kind of concise, great content, if you ever get your hands on an old Forgotten Realms campaign setting from 3.5, I don't think D&D has put out arguably a better book in terms of content, setting wise. And it goes through all the regions of Forgotten Realms. And a lot of the times it'll do kind of a very kind of traditional layout. It'll have the area, kind of the statistics, population, government, religion. Then it'll have a couple paragraphs on life and society, another 8 or 10 paragraphs on geographic features, important sites, and then some regional history and sometimes plots and rumors. And that creates, that 2 pages creates a ton of content that people can build off of. And I think that's a pretty good framework to use when building your own campaign. Those sort of hooks are enormous.
Yes.
There was a D&D adventure, published adventure called Storm King's Thunder. It was one of the early pre-written adventures in 5th edition. And I ran that when I ran my little local game store at the Game at the Mall. And there was one chapter where it's just exploration. And all it has is just short little paragraphs of locations throughout the Sword Coast. And it's just like the players move, through these places. And at certain ones, just random ones, there were like encounters with, giants and led them along the story. But it just, if the GM wanted to run, a small paragraph, and there was games that I was in, I think sometimes I'm inspired by, I see one little location. I'm like, oh, maybe, you know, and then build out from there, you know, and just pluck stuff from, you know, the things that are written in the books.
Yeah, and I guess circling back, if I have to focus on one thing I would give advice on, if you can use music and sound in your games to some extent, go for it. And I mean, we do it as a podcast in a very minimal way. The first one or two arcs, definitely the first one that we ever did, I put a lot of music into it. Not continuously, but a lot of serious scenes. I always was looking for music to drop in. We stopped doing it for two reasons. One, it was a ton of work, and we were getting artist permission for all of it and all this kind of shit. But also, it started to get to the point of sounding overly produced. But for most arcs, we've kept with a very bare bones system of when we are in a combat or conflict, I will, not always, but usually put music to it. And that's really not for the players because we're not doing it live. In this case, it's doing it for a podcast audience. But I think as a listener, and it would work if we could do it live and it wasn't as hard to do with the editing on top of it. I think it immediately shifts you into like if you're used to no music, you add like a tense kind of background music and you get an immediate buy-in. So if you can add music at one point in your game, use it for combats or conflicts or scenes where you really want to heighten the focus a little bit. That would be your number one, your best use of it to drop it in. At the time you change the music. I think music is great, but there's dramatic changes in people's demeanor when the music changes.
Oh yeah.
You know, tactically deploy your change of music, and that will definitely get the attention of your players.
Very nice. Well,
thanks for the questions.
Yeah,
those were
That's
great.
great.
I think we got into each, and you know, if you want us to kind of maybe or maybe not even get to the gist of answering questions that you paid,
To go
us
back
to.
after I was like, I did not answer that question at all.
That's what's all about being a snack shacker. So check us
That's
out,
right.
patreon.com/nastygram.
Ringing endorsement.
Thank you very much, Brian. These are always very fun for us to do. I love doing these. I find them, they help maintain our own juices flowing, as it were. So
thanks for maintaining our juices.
Under the table.
under the table. And that's it. See you next time.
Bye.
A police car and a screaming siren, pneumatic drill and ripped up concrete, a baby wailing, straight out howling, a screech of brakes and lamp lights blinking. That's entertainment. That's entertainment.
That's nasty.